Hi there! You're probably thinking, why did Chinese people came into Canada? Well, during the 19th century, the living condition in China wasn't really the best because of these three reasons: famine, civil war, and foreign competition. The farming in China wasn't enough to feed the increasing population. This caused the famine to spread all over the country, which then sparked the Taiping Rebellion of 1851 to 1864. This rebellion wiped out 20 million of the population in China. After losing the Opium Wars to the Great Britain in 1842 and 1860, China had to open most of its city for European trade and pay higher taxes. This made the living condition difficult for the Chinese people. This is why they decided to move to Canada, for the gold and for better opportunities.
In 1886, the Canadian Pacific Railway required a major number of workers, so the second wave of Chinese immigration started. 17,000 Chinese men were recruited to work on the railway. These Chinese workers had to work under extreme pressure. They had to work on the most dangerous and back-breaking tasks. Sacrifices during the process were unavoidable. Although they had to work under the harsh environments, they only got a daily wage of $1, which included their food, house renting, and equipment. It was estimated that 600 Chinese died for every 1 mile of the track were caused by explosions, extreme weather, illness, and starvation. To fulfill John A. Macdonald's promise of extending to British Columbia when it entered the Confederation in 1871. This is the first Canadian railway to cross the Rocky Mountains to reach the Pacific coast. The short-term effects of the railway is that Chinese people die while under construction. The long-term effects are to help Canada to establish hotels, shipping lines, develop mining and telecommunications industries that significantly grew to Canada's economy.
Hey. After the completion of the Canadian Pacific Railroad, agitation against the Yellow Peril gathered, resulting in over 100 provincial laws and policies. These laws and policies restricted the rights of Chinese residents. Yellow Peril refers to the Chinese people who originated in the late 1800s. Chinese people no longer had the right to immigrate without a head tax, which the head tax, the prices would vary.
It started off as $50 payment per person in 1885 and was raised over time to $500. The head tax lasted 38 years, 1885 to 1923. Approximately 81,000 Chinese immigrants paid the head tax, contributing nearly $23 million to the Canadian government.
There was also a limit on their absence from Canada, which meant if they're gone longer than 2 years, the penalty would be that they would get refused re-entry of the country, maybe even lose their citizenship.
Jiang Xingyu, who came to Canada in 1923, was one of the last Chinese immigrants to pay for a head tax. Until in
1923, Canada had made an act which would ban the entry of nearly all Chinese immigrants for 24 straight years.
Called the Exclusion Act.
The only exceptions to this act would be students and merchants, excluding laundry, restaurant, and retail operators. This Exclusion Act required for people of Chinese descent, whether Canadian-born or settled into the country, to register for an identity card within 12 months. If they refused or didn't get the identity card, the penalty was imprisonment or a fine of up to $500.
This destroyed the dreams of the Chinese people who came to Canada in hopes of bringing their family and live a good life. Some of them were able to bring their families into Canada before the Exclusion Act, but for those who did not, lived out their days in Chinatown in loneliness, not being able of having any relationship because of race judgment.
On June 23, 2006, Prime Minister Stephen Harper apologized to the head taxpayers, their families, and the Chinese Canadian community. It is estimated about 82,000 Chinese paid the fee, first set at $50 and later raised to $500, about 2 years' wages at the time. For many years, the federal government refused to apologize, citing the possibilities of
Legal liabilities. Stephen Harper stated that the Government of Canada will make payments back to those who were required to pay the head tax and to the spouses of those payers who passed away. Canada has a lot of dark history, but as Stephen Harper said, we have the collective responsibility to build a country based firmly on the notion of equality of opportunity, regardless of one's race or ethnic origin.